You're watching Call for Two. I'm Jesse. I'm here with Greg.
Thanks for having me on the channel.
This is your quick before you buy it review for The Animals of Baker Street.
A game so adorable, it's painful.
A little bit of background on this game and who the audience is, because this is a little different from our normal games we play. This is a game co-authored by Dave Neal, who has a background of these mystery games. He's made Echoes, and he made a famous box of cases for Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective called The Baker Street Irregulars, which is for adults.
And it also is one of your favorite of that system.
It sure is.
Yeah.
Dave Neal's really quite a genius in this mystery game sphere. This game, however, is targeted specifically at a younger audience. The box says ages 10 and up, and that seems appropriate. So we're viewing this through the lens of whether it would be a good game to recommend or give as gifts to a younger audience, not whether we find this super compelling as a mystery game.
We could also answer that question.
We will answer that question.
Now, normally we would go down to the table and show you how the game plays, but it's so simplistic that we're just going to quickly show you the rules of the game.
So this is a game that's broken up into scenarios. They're actually part of a continuing campaign. So the story builds, you must play them in order. There's a tutorial and then 6 scenarios that are longer, and we've played the first 3 or so. So you'll open up the scenario, you'll put out cards that are, there's a card for each location on the board, and each scenario tells you how much time you have. So you'll have a certain amount of these clock timers that tell you how many turns you can take. It's not really turns, but... And then you'll block off for each scenario certain locations on the board. You'll have 4 main characters, at least in the beginning, that you divide up among the players. Each character has certain special abilities that are described in English text, and you'll just have one of your clever, fun decisions you'll make is who to interact with each location. As a group, you'll pick which location on the board you want to go to. That'll cost you a time token. You'll move the group token there. Everyone always moves as a group. And then you'll turn over the card associated with that location for that scenario. You'll read a little story, and at the bottom of this card, you'll find a couple of magnifying glasses with possible consequences. And the consequences, either nothing happens and there's no consequence, or sometimes you get a time clock that eats up an extra time, and then what you're really hoping for is you get a number which reveals a little secret card. So you pick which character you think is most appropriate for that location, you flip it over, and then you line up the magnifying glasses and see if anything happens. And if you're lucky enough to line up a number, you would look up that secret card, and there could be maybe like 13 in each given case, and then you would have discovered something. Sometimes you discover information, sometimes you discover an item that you can use later. And then you also might get kicked out of a location if something bad happened, and then you just repeat. You pick a new place to go, you go there, and maybe you use your items, so maybe you'll go back somewhere and use it. Eventually, you'll either run out of time and be told to flip over an event that happens when you run out of time, or you'll solve it and the game will tell you, you'll read a card and say, you're ready to solve it, go and read the conclusion. Each of the cases has a nice long introduction to the case in the case book, which is here. And then when you get to the end, if you solve it, you read the solution. If you didn't solve it, you could play it again.
So the art and components of this game are fantastic. I mean, I mentioned before about it being adorable, but it really is. It's so cute. This game is it hurts to read it sometimes. I mean, between the writing and the artwork, you have all these little cartoon creatures and things. And the board itself is very cool because it actually is 2-sided. You can have things happen in the daytime, and you can have things happen in the nighttime. And the art is very well done. There's not a lot of components, but I think everything is done in a way that actually enhances the ease of play. Now, Jesse talked about just how simply the game plays. I mean, how easy it is to go through things. But the art also enhances that playability and ease of play. I mean, first of all, the instruction card tells you exactly how to set it up. You can have this game set up in like less than 5 minutes. And then, everything is quite easy. Like, like you want to go to the tree. Well, the tree has a picture on the back. You're going to the tree. And then you read it and you can match it up. Everything is made very simply. When you move somewhere, like he said, you're putting the time token down. So it's quite clear that you've been there already and that you have to move that time token there. And also, like, just the cards themselves, having to flip it over to reveal these so you don't accidentally see if maybe you might match up with something is quite nice. And then just the concept that each of these people, as he said, has their own power. I think when you've got kids at the table, you're like, oh, I'm the frog. I'm good at talking to people, and I'm good, or hey, I'm the spider, and like I'm like brute strong, and I can intimidate people, and I can build webs. And then maybe if you're playing with the kids, the kids can be like, I can do that because I can fly up there or whatever, so it's kind of like you can really see that it's very easily kind of allowing them to use this game as like a tool for their imagination and their budding detective skills. I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, let me just talk a little bit more. The name of the game is Animals of Baker Street, and that really is fully embraced here. It's animals. Everything you're doing is animals. You're playing these creatures. They're all very specific characters with very different personalities, and there's a lot of reading of dialogue, and the creatures you interact with, like, you're not talking to humans. It's all animal world. You're going and talking to creatures that live, subterranean creatures, and if you like, kids love having stories read to them in different voices, like, this is the best of both worlds because there's huge amounts of dialogue. They're always by these weird, quirky animals. And as you said, the other delight here is not only if you're an adult reading all these voices or kids reading voices, the kids can actually play these different animals. And that's got to be really satisfying for a kid to be able to be in this world of animals.
Jumping off on that, being good for kids and stuff and going through the story, this isn't punishing, the idea of if you fail, this is kind of not really a spoiler, but like you can kind of keep playing. There's a system put into place so that like you don't fail and then the story and now you've wasted one of, the 6 or 7 missions you have. I also like the fact that the story is written in a way where it's almost like a little Dr. Seuss-y where like, they always have like the morals that they're trying to teach you and things. And this definitely, again, we only played a few of the missions, but you get a real sense of like, there are some lessons in here, I mean, it's not overly preachy or anything, but it's positive. It's a positive story and the characters are learning good things, which is really, I think, very cool. I do think that you do use some deduction, Jesse and I mean, we won each of the cases. We're adults. We can figure things out, but it was like, oh, maybe it's this or maybe it's that, but it wasn't, it was just a fun little journey to explore and figure out what that deductive part of it.
I think you make a really important point. First of all, kids love rewatching movies. They'll watch movies over and over again that an adult won't because they love those scenes. And I think the first thing that's going to happen with this game is a kid will be very happy to replay these scenarios just to hear those creatures interact with each other. Yeah. And they probably won't be so obsessed with getting it solved efficiently. And as you said, if you get to the end and don't solve it, the kid would just jump in and replay it. You don't learn the solution. It's not like a regular mystery game, Sherlock Holmes, where you read the solution, you're like, I'll never want to play this again. It's so short. It's such a short game, under an hour on the longest game we played.
We played, I think the first couple were 30 minutes. The last one was an hour. It was a little bit
So,
longer.
I mean, I think this gets that part about the attraction for kids, that your kids will replay a mission over and over again.
There is a mechanism in there, that's what I was referring to, is that it just says, keep going until you solve it, essentially. Well, speaking of reading, that dovetails perfectly into what I wanted to say. It's very kind of cool to read to kids, like read the story and do the voices and stuff. And this definitely has that ability because each of the characters has their own personality. They're gruff or fun or, the little mouse voice or whatever. Jesse does a real good clay voice for a frog. I don't know what a frog sounds like, but Jesse does a good job doing a frog voice. But, I mean, it's kind of cool because like I kind of think of it as, if you were to say, hey, people be like, I'm going to read the Harry Potter books to my kids, and every night I'm going to read them a chapter, and that'll be a fun little routine. And this kind of feels like that. You could say, like, hey, kids, every Tuesday we're going to go through the story, and you're reading the different things, and there's some humor there. There's some humor in the writing.
There's some humor. There's quite a bit of humor.
I think it's very well written.
Well, can I jump in on that? Okay, so if you play Dave Neal's box, Baker Street Irregulars, one of the things, or if you watch my review, one of the things you realize is he's a very good writer. And there are two kinds of children's books and writing that you encounter sometimes. Sometimes you get one and it's like super simplified for kids. This is not like that. There are some big words in this. This definitely has that flavor of the kids are going to love the story and the dialogue, but there are adult words in here. This is exactly what you would want. This is the ideal case. Like, it's very well written. An adult reading along and listening would enjoy the writing too.
Well,
and a kid is going to learn some new words playing this game.
Well, I think like kind of in the early days, Pixar, Toy Story and stuff, they kind of nailed that new era of kids movies where they say, this is for the kids, and then there's a whole kind of level for the adults. And I don't think it's quite to that much, but like me as an adult, I enjoyed reading through it, and I think kids are going to really love it. And the last thing I'll say about the story actually is that I love that it continues. Like it's kind of a little bit of a world building. You're starting to understand the moles and the rats and the squirrels, and it's a continuing case. I mean, there's different cases but it's a continuing story, I should say, where you get to know those characters and they will reappear, and I really love that. I mean, it's fantastic.
Couple little nitpick complaints or areas where it could be improved in terms of the mechanics. One of them is that the whole mechanic of lining up these cards works quite well, and we've seen it in Suspects, a mystery game made for adults. The one sort of thing that gets sacrificed there is you often do something and you line it up and there's nothing that happens. And it's kind of a weird moment. And in other games, you might like to see something like it says, you tried this, but it didn't work. There were a couple times where it wasn't that clear what we were trying to do when we lined it up. And it would have been nice to get a little more feedback for wrong decisions. Here, when you do the right thing, you get the reward. But when you do the wrong thing, you get no feedback.
I want to mention something. There's a bit of cleverness in this system where, like, if you do something completely wrong, you're going to get punished for it. But if you do something that seems reasonable, it might not have an effect because
that's true. That's quite clever.
Because it's like, well, you're not going to get punished for it, but you're not penalized to keep trying different characters. So you can try all 4 characters if you want to, and evidence that you have. And if it was reasonable to ask that or do that, you're not going to get penalized, until you find the right answer.
That's a very good point. It's actually a very clever mechanic that time does not tick by on your turns, on your actions, only when you do something that the game decides you should have known not to do. Yeah. Very good point.
Well, what do you think, Jesse, about adults playing this game without kids?
Yeah, I don't think this is going to please the real mystery gamers that are adults. I mean, you should be playing Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. This does not scratch
Chronicles of Crime.
Or Chronicles of Crime, or Detective Modern Board Game. This does not scratch the real deduction itch here. The fun part here is the story and funny kids dialogue. The deduction is there. As you said, we played it. We thought we did our normal thing where we embraced the game and the mechanics and tried to think about it. You came up with some clever meta thinking about what would be likely. There are elements for adults here, but I think you said it perfectly before. This is going to be the game that the adult can enjoy while playing with the kid. This is not a game that's going to satisfy just a group of adults.
Yeah, I feel like I get the same feeling from this like I would if I was, there's some kids shows that are fun for adults to watch, like Adventure Time. Well, I don't know if I guess it's arguable whether it's a kid show, but there's like shows like that are like, or movies or whatever that you enjoy watching. And I kind of feel like I get the same vibe out of this. If you were like, you have to play all these, I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
I felt I enjoyed, they're so quick. I mean, I have a big thing about game length and and complexity and luck and all that. And this is such a short game, and I really enjoyed the few games we played of it, Mm-hmm. And so, like, I think, I mean, not every, you're not going to get the same. It's in today's gaming market, there's so much, and so you're not just saying like, is this a good game to play? But should I play this when I could be playing something else? But I'm very impressed by this. The only bad thing I can say about it is that, like, when you line the cards up, sometimes you're like, wait, am I not lined up?
Mm-hmm,
I mean, you almost want like a little cardboard tray or something to put it in. And that's a stretch. Normally I have quite a lot of opinions about stuff, but I think this is such a well done package.
Can I talk about my thoughts for a young group? So I think it's unfair to expect a mystery game to appeal both to adults and to kids. But for kids, this really feels like a home run because not only the art is amazing and engaging and the writing is great and it's got some adult level writing that I think you would be proud to have your kids reading and learning rules, and as you said, the continuing story. For me, this feels like a complete home run for kids that adults might be happy to read along with them and see how it goes. And the deduction feels at the right level for kids. There are, as a young kid, a 10-year-old kid or so, a smart 10-year-old kid, they would really be thinking things through. Like, where would I learn this information? Where should I go for here? So that is targeted perfectly. And I do think this game is targeted perfectly. And I would absolutely highly recommend it for a group of kids or as a gift for kids.
Yeah. I mean, we're not really, I can't really give this a numerical rating, like, because I'm not a kid or I'm not, in like that age bracket. But like, it's like, I want to say it's a 10 for that, I mean, again, I don't know, but like I'm really impressed with this game. I mean, it's just, I would, if again, you could buy this hoping your kids would like play this, and then
That's a great
years
point.
from now they're going to be playing the heavier
Gateway mystery game.
It is a very
Yeah.
maybe not even gateway. It's like getting it on the ground, the ground
Yeah.
floor. But yeah, so I mean, this is an absolute huge recommendation, I think, from both of us. So.
Yeah.
But you can actually watch the tutorial being played. We do have a playthrough on the channel. We normally do deep dives into games, but we're not going to do that on this one. You can check me out if you like movies on Watchacha's Watch List, and if you like war games, Watchacha's Wargaming Journal.
It would be great to hear back from parents who play this with their kids and hear a little bit about how the kids took to the game, whether they really do replay these scenarios, how you play it. Do you read the voices? Do they read the voices?
Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next video.